Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today we have Lee Michael Pronko on the show. He's a single dad and he's co founder of the Heartstring Dating App. And today we're going to talk all about being a single dad, dating, relationships, and this awesome app that is video based and I think long overdue in this modern dating world. Lee, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Christine. I mean, you're in California. I'm in Ottawa. I hope it's as beautiful there as it is here today.
You're Canadian. Is,
hmm
is that why you're so nice?
Am I that nice?
You're
You haven't heard?
you're a nice guy. From our I don't know you well, but from our email exchanges, your patience, your
Mm.
kindness, you are very nice.
Oh, thanks, Christine. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a touch of Canadianness in there, right? But yeah, I think it's important to be a good person, be nice to people, be professional. You never know. I have my moments, though. Like there are moments. Parenting can rev you up a little bit.
How old is
Um,
he?
3. His mother, my co-parents, we were together for maybe a year and a half before we had a child, so pretty quick out the gate. But we've been co-parenting for about 3 years now. Honestly, pretty much right after he was born, we separated. So it's been a wild journey right through the COVID era, and I don't know. Yeah, it's been challenging. Been the most rewarding thing, and single parent power is like pretty much if you really tap into it, it gives you a lot of energy and resilience and perseverance to beat the competition. And what I mean by beat the competition is like outwork anybody, because pretty much when you're single parenting, there's no one tapping in for you. There's no one coming in to make food, or you got to do it all yourself, and then more, because once your child goes to sleep, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be grinding when they're asleep, right? So tap into that parent power if you're out there being a single. I mean, anyone can tap into it. I'm not saying people that don't have kids can't, but it's like you really get, I think, some extra resilience if you do have a child and you're single parenting.
May I ask why did you decide to split after he was born?
Yeah, that's the best question everyone asks me. Okay, so I mean, speaking from that stage of life and kind of where we're at, we had a lot of our own emotional and generational trauma that really wasn't dealt with, right? And I think sometimes in life, you can't always know that you have those things until you're in a situation when you've arrived there, and then you're like, wow, this is all the stuff coming up. Even if even if you're doing the work, and everybody, I've been there where I've like kind of had a lot of negative self-talk, like, oh, I need to do more self-work, I need to do more of this. But it's like sometimes things only come up when the context and the circumstance really forces you to see that thing. So for me, we separated because, yeah, we weren't kind of emotionally available for each other in the ways that we needed for ourselves. We had, yeah, a lot of unhealed trauma that needed to be dealt with that couldn't be done as a collective unit. It needed to be done individually, and we just didn't have alignment on kind of our styles of approaching things in the world then, including parenting. But it's funny, we've really worked through the like parental alignment in a very nice way now, where we have a very good balance of. I always like to go back to that like yin and yang piece, where it's like she's a little more soft, and again, it can be flipped for any parent, any roles, doesn't matter gender. It's just in our case, she's a little bit more soft and more. Her approach to like parenting is that style, where mine's a little bit more strict, a little bit more disciplined. So wherever it gets that balance, right? And it's really cool for us to negotiate and navigate that together and grow in that now, looking back from where we were then. But yeah, and I just made a choice one day, honestly, to say like, like we can't do this anymore. And it was tough because I don't know. I was 30. What do I know about the? Not saying you don't know anything about the world at 30, but what did I know then? Right? I just said, hey, we have to separate. It's not going to work. It's not the path that we're going down. We're not going to be able to be together and have a raise river the best way that we could. And that led us to show a different way in co-parenting. And I'm not saying it's not easy. It always has its challenges as things evolve, but it's the best choice I could have ever made. So yeah, but from my perspective, we separated because there just wasn't alignment, and there's things that needed to be healed. And as much as it was 10 times harder in some ways, the net result is it's much better. Yeah, and we want to show a new way. I come from a household of divorce, so does she. It's pretty common, right?
Yeah.
And most people, something I've encountered in relationships pretty often when I out the gate is when I explain to them that I have a very practical, and when I say close, I mean close is that anytime Jess wants to call me or FaceTime me to talk to River, like, absolutely. Or like, hey, if we can make it happen where we get together or we have a quick lunch or bring River to sports together, cool. Like, I have no, like, I even go as far as to say I can literally be naked in front of her and there's no, like, we don't have any kind of, it's like, oh, I'm jumping in the shower with River and she came to pick him up and I was like, I don't know, naked. It wouldn't, it doesn't even, we're not even there, you know? And so, but it's very hard for people sometimes when they come into that, especially as a new partner, a new dating, right? They think that's weird, and it makes sense because the majority of society that's had breakups or separations have a lot of drama. That's why everyone goes, "Oh, is there drama?" I'm like, "No, there's that. There's no. There's challenges for sure, but does that make sense?"
No, that totally makes sense. Everyone's different, and I get it because I've been on the side of dating someone who had an ex, who he was still in touch with, which made me uncomfortable. But I've also been that person who have had exes where there's nothing, so I do understand that dynamic.
Hmm.
And so I think it can be tricky. It just comes down to communication, and everyone's personalities are different too. I think when I was
Hmm.
younger, I was more immature and unhealed, so I wouldn't be okay with something like that. Where now that I have a little more life experience and
Hmm.
understanding, and if someone gives me a reason like to trust them, or
Yeah,
unless they give me a reason to not trust them,
exactly.
I would it would be something that I would understand as long as there's mutual respect. That is where I draw the line. Like there has to be mutual respect and we care about each other's feelings.
Yeah, and I think out the gate, if you're clear and transparent about what the situation is, then there's nothing to hide. You're just transparent about it. Like, here's my relationship. Here's what I'm working on. And yeah, and there's boundaries. I think boundaries are key though too, because I've had some scenarios. It's like as you go through the healing process and you find the balance between your co-parent and how you're parenting, but then also any new relationships that come in on your side or her side, there are things where you have to kind of negotiate this like, okay, I'll give you an example. Something I've struggled with is like having expectations about like, hey, a plan may be made and there's no follow through. And that's something that we struggled with previously when we were together. So, letting go of that expectation, that's the toughest part, I think, about the healing process and the healing journey, just like any friendship, right? Regardless if it's an ex partner or friends, there's some level of like, I think, required commitment to like, I'm your friend. Like, yes, I don't expect to hang out with you every day, or like maybe you can't pick up the call every time, but at least I know that there's some consistency. At least that's what I look for, is like consistency in like the communication, or like if you're gonna show up, like say like show up, follow through, That's what I look for. And it's sometimes challenging for me in negotiating those things. Um, in a co-parenting relationship, and having empathy and understanding for someone that like maybe something came up, but letting go that like, hey, if they say they can't actually, come for dinner with River and I, okay, cool. Like, but it does lead to some disappointment sometimes because if your child knows, I experienced that growing up with my parents, or saying they're going to show up at something, and again, no hard feelings now to them. It was what it was. That generation was different, and but it's just like that's an example of stuff where I think one of the lessons learned is you got to work through a lot of this like expectation and then the like boundary. Sometimes the boundaries you just talk practical stuff. That's it. You don't talk anything else. And I've gone through that too, where I'd share everything because I naturally am someone who wants to share everything. But it's like sometimes it's not effective. It's not effective to the balance of the relationship.
You've been separated for 3 years now? Almost
Yeah.
3 years? Yeah,
Hmm.
so I think these things I think it takes time to work. Like 3 years is not that long of a time. And you also have a kid who's changing very fast.
Very quickly, yeah. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I think for everyone relative to their journey, they know where they are in terms of their, yes, time is certainly a key factor. I would actually point out one thing about the time piece. I myself personally know that when I separated and I went into a series of, like dating and relationships, the majority of those at the gate, after 3, 6, 9 months were primarily for of the having fun and sexual nature. That was my journey, right? It was like and that was my healing process too. And maybe I wasn't doing the full things self work I needed to do, but that's part of how I went through it, right? But I think personally, it took me maybe like one year and a half. I think that would be like again, we weren't together that long. We knew we wanted a child. There wasn't that much alignment. And yeah, it's tough. We produced a human that takes something special. But again, everyone has their own journey. Some people, maybe it takes them, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years. I have no idea, right?
Do you mean it took you a year and a half until you wanted to start diving into the self-awareness and self-healing?
No, I've been doing that for a long time, probably a decade.
Okay.
But in the context of like healing from my relationship, I would say probably a year and a half before I started like really going deeper into those things. And I got a new therapist at the time too, which was very helpful to just have that person in my corner, like to help me work through some of the things I wasn't perhaps cognizant of, even though I did meditation, yoga, journaling, work, like all the stuff, but those things weren't really hitting the mark. I was probably avoiding some things, and I need to have some honest conversations with myself and my therapist. So that was helpful. But I would say it took about a year and a half. And then, yeah, I mean, it was already like from my perspective, like I was, when I made the choice to leave the relationship, that I was like done. That was done. But it's just the like things that I need to heal that where I was carrying into, my dating experiences, my other relationships. It took probably about a year and a half, I would say.
Can you share some examples of those things
Yeah,
that you
sure.
were avoiding?
Yeah, I mean, being probably my attachment style previously would probably be more something like anxious avoidant. I'd balance between the two. So in terms of anxiousness, that relates definitely to some generational trauma of feeling abandoned. That would definitely be probably the first piece. So having that attachment style was pretty common for me. Maybe even hitting the gas on like things like very quickly, out the gate when it's like, am I really in alignment? Am I just saying that I'm going with this and it's good and it's going to last forever type thing, right? Like, those are some of the things I think that I was like, okay, I need to peel back here and just be okay with being alone and accepting that, right? Like that's a tough one, I think, for a lot of people for a while. This one is interesting. It's something I learned probably over the last year, which would be just getting better at present moment, but not present moment in a naive way, like a present moment where you're very dialed in. So what I mean by that is like we often have this balance where we're always like future thinking, like what's the like you're creating a narrative, right, about your relationship. You're like, oh, I just met this person, like we're gonna get married. I'm not saying everyone does that, but I think sometimes we create these like narratives of where we think it's gonna go and we project onto a relationship rather than just being in the present moment of like enjoying that person and the time that you're spending with that person. And that's something I think over the last year I really focused on. Took like a year and a half of just like this narrative creation and like, anxious abandonment and then just dialing into the present moment. But if you go too far in the present moment, you also step away and maybe lose sight of what you want to build, right? And I'm 35, I have a son. I can't just be like having sex and having fun all the time. That's fun and that's good. And like, I had like a summer fling in the summer. That was cool, but it wasn't going to go anywhere, right? And that's an example just where it's like I think dating in general can really give you this if you really tune into it as like a learning opportunity. Yes, it's fun, but it's like you really learn about yourself and you can use it as a way to, I mean, work through a lot of stuff that you maybe weren't cognizant of before. Those are kind of two things I think for me was the narrative creation and the like very anxious attachment style, and then the dialing into the present moment.
Yeah, that balance is tricky, between the present moment stuff, Eckhart Tolle, and then also living in a modern world that we actually live in, where you have to consider some things. As nice as it sounds to live life like that, I don't think that it really works unless you're like a monk, uh, living in a mountain or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
When you were casually dating, did you communicate this to the women that you were dating at the time?
I don't think I was fully cognizant myself of it. It's only upon reflecting back at this time that I'm like aware of that because I took stock of like my patterns, right, over the past year and a half of what I've been up to. That took a good therapist, to be honest. And I actively searched out a therapist that like I was like, okay, I need someone that's like 30 years experience in like family trauma, like divorce, and like when I found that, actually cool side story, I found that because I looked on this bunch of different websites, and I think it was Psychology Today that had little 15-second videos of the psychologist, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I was like, now I don't, because when I read like a bio of a psychologist and I see their photo, I don't get any sense of their vibe or their energy, right? How do I even know if I'm going to connect with them? And they're so taxed for time. You got to go. Maybe you get a free session, maybe not. Maybe you have to pay a couple $100, right? And it's like, but when I saw this 15-second clip and I just started watching all hundreds of them, I was like, this is genius. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I thought about Heartstring actually. But in any case, I saw this video of my psychologist and I was like, man, this guy like is exactly the guy that I want to speak with. He's an entrepreneur, so he understands that entrepreneurial life, right? And all those added stressors, has all this family divorce issues, the way he speaks, his office setting. I was just like, perfect, sign me up. So yeah, and to your question, it's like there's a lot of stuff I couldn't have known about myself until I went through those experiences, and then reflected back on and been like, hey, what were the patterns that I kind of like? One of the patterns would be like out the gate, it'd be like 100 miles an hour. Be like, oh man, I have this crazy connection, but that was passionate and that was a good thing, right? Chemistry, but it doesn't mean compatibility. So there's like that weird balance where you can have a lot of passion at the gate, but that's not going to sustain you over time. I think going back, like, if I, you're always like, oh man, did I act like, was I an asshole, or like, did I do something? But we also can't beat ourselves up about the things that how we behave. It takes two people to make a relationship, and you're 50% of that. And sometimes they have expectations that they thought were going to be achieved, and you have yours, and that's why. And now you're not there anymore, and it didn't work out.
Yeah,
It's
that's
tough to avoid the negative self-talk. That's a tough one too, I think, where you like go too deep and beating yourself up about lessons learned. It's like, hey, like I think it's also a way to celebrate and be like, wow, I'm that much more self-aware now.
that's definitely work to do. That's something I had to do over a course of 5, 6 years of learning. Well, it's like self-love too, right? You're even if
100% it is self-love.
you don't say it out loud, it's how do you approach things? How do you look at lessons learned down to really simple stuff like when I'm in dance class and if I can't memorize the choreo, if I'm not getting it, what am I thinking to myself? Because I
Mm,
imagine that whatever I'm saying would be like the parent on the sideline. So is it nice? Is it nice? Am I having fun? I'm not trying to be a
mhm,
professional dancer here. It's like a recreational class for fun. Something as simple as that. And I still
mhm,
do it. Do I still go to dance class every week? Is it trains me to be gentle with myself and to
mm,
have fun because that's the whole point. Like if you don't
mhm,
feel good, why are you doing something?
mhm. That's
Right?
nice. That's a nice way to put it.
Right? And with dating, it's learning. Like you said earlier, you learn a lot about yourself when you date, when you embody. Because some people, when they go on their personal growth journey, it's very inward, it's very isolating, which I think maybe sometimes you need that.
Mhm,
But I think if you want to learn how to be in relationship, learn about yourself in relationship, whether it's serious or not, you can go and
mhm,
date with the intention of nothing being serious, but you will have things mirrored back to you. And I think
mhm,
with I asked you earlier about like, did you communicate to the women you were dating when it was more casual or not long term? I think because I had so much experience with guys doing that and it was really hurtful. I was like
mhm,
confused. It seemed like it was 100 miles an hour, like we're doing this. And it
mhm,
was a lot of confusion on my part. And I got mad for a long time. Like, what the fuck? Like,
mhm,
what the fuck's going on? And that's the thing with the relationships is it's two people, so there's always going to be things that are out of your control, right? You
mhm.
can be sure, but you can never be in control of someone else's response, if they change their minds, where they're at. So I just did my best to have self-awareness and communicate where I was because I wanted someone who could match that too.
Mhm,
So there was probably a reason because I was learning at this time too, like
mhm.
what is it that I actually want? And I think as I got more clear, as I started to show up more in alignment with my integrity, speaking my truth, I started to date and attract people who could match that.
That's a really good way to put it, and just kind of branching off from that, I don't think I could have spoken to the things that I perhaps wanted back then because I wasn't self-aware on that journey because I needed to go through that, right? And I totally understand the other side of I just think maybe I was maybe misguided myself for what I was looking for. Like I really like when I say the anxious attachment style, right? I was approaching it in like, oh yes, I want a relationship right away. I really want to, hunker down. But the truth is that was going against my like innate feelings that I couldn't articulate at the time because I was just healing from a wound. So what you seek when you're healing from this wound is you want to seek that attachment. You want to feel comforted. You want to feel loved. But to your point about being like a monk or going off into the wild by yourself, you also, at least from my perspective as a man, I needed to do that actually so that I could actually work on those things myself, right? And so yeah, it's this weird balance. I would say honestly, truthfully, even to this day, the latest relationship, and just before we you hit the record button, as I said, I just started seeing someone for about a month now. I don't think I attracted the right partners until like literally probably right now. And I would say that because I went through a few different phases. I think the phase of partners I was attracting matched kind of my energy, but they weren't the right compatibility for me. So the energy, they may be passionate, but perhaps they're a little bit more neurotic. And so nothing wrong with that. It's just that two neurotic partners tend to have a really kind of low grade of like energy. And I was like, you know what? I want to also not be that neurotic anymore. And the way I explain that is some things in my life, like if I have a really low energy, people around me totally feel that right away. If I have a hype energy, it's like everybody knows I'm hype. So getting that balance a little bit better. And then the other piece to it was that we didn't really have compatibility in the like maybe some lifestyle aligned, but truthfully the compatibility wasn't on like maybe our vision together, like where we were going to go, or um, yeah, even just some basic values and stuff. And I don't think I was attracting any partner actually until literally because I had to go through this other phase. I think, which was the summer, was the kind of summer fling phase, where I was like, okay, I'm totally in the present. Let's go. I'm focused on my entrepreneurial journey. Nothing's going to take me off that, which is awesome. And I've been in alignment with that for like years now anyway, but it's like really dialed into it, obviously, for the past year for Heartstring. And this was just like after, she was the person that brought up and said, hey, this is not really going to go anywhere for me. And I actually was slightly hurt by it, but I accepted it, right? I was like, you know what? All right, this makes sense. It was just like sex and fun and, taking my truck to the drive-in, like stuff that I never do, stuff that I never ever did. I was like, all right, let's do this. And that was good stuff. But the type of partner that she was for me wasn't, it's like I kind of like tricked myself. I was like, all right, this is fun. She's very attractive. Like, but that's also good to do, I think. It's also good to, as long as you know that. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. This is
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Yes.
So, and then now I'm at a stage where I'm just like, truthfully, what it comes down to is, for me, like I'm on my entrepreneurial journey, and anyone that comes into my life, it's just take it or leave it. Like I definitely can't. I don't make any concessions anymore, and I know that sounds so harsh, but it's like I know exactly what I want and what I'm doing. So anyone that's coming into my life, I make it the way it works for me. Is I go like, I'll make you priority, but this is how I parcel my time out, and it's like Friday night can be our night. Like that's our night. However, I have pushed that boundary recently because what I do on Friday nights is I go out and I get content for Heartstring and get like pitches from people. So date night becomes this way where like we go on a date, but she loves it. And I'm like, this is awesome because she gets to go out and have fun with me. We get some drinks. But then it's actually really helpful because people are more amenable to talk to someone, especially if there's a woman with them. I can just tell you from going out by myself, be like, hey, do you want to be on my thing? They don't care. But when there's, a beautiful woman with you, it's much easier. And she's in it. She's like, download it. It's on the apps. She's like yelling at them. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. She's like my biggest champion while I'm out there. So I now know like, and it's not all about me. Like she has her things that she needs and she asks of me. And that's like where I dial into what she needs. But it's really cool to see like this lifestyle alignment emerging from that. And I honestly think that I have not attracted a partner that like works for me until now. So it's really cool that it's kind of like happening in real time and I'm seeing that now.
Like you're learning like more and more about what you actually want because you're seeing glimpses of that.
Yeah, I think that there's two things. I hear a lot of people go like, I have my list. I write down exactly what I'm looking for. And I think some of that can be kind of arbitrary. And I'll tell you why, because based on, again, going back to like Heartstring and just like video only dating or in-person meeting, a lot of it is based for me on like the energy and the vibe you get from someone. Even what they're saying, how they're talking, that's all out the gate kind of what matters. But it can't be based on just like you can have whatever list you want. I think there's some check marks and green flags. Like, yeah, someone that's doing the self work, they could be at a certain place in their journey, but they may not, even if they've done the self work or doing it, they may not be in alignment with you from a, I don't know, timeline perspective. Maybe they don't want kids if you want kids. Maybe they're not ready to get married. You're like, who knows what it is, right? So I think sometimes we need to let go of the resume and just be open to kind of sounds, I don't want to sound very like airy here, but like whatever the universe, like it's gonna, people can sense your energy. So they know, and not in an airy way. It's just they can sense like where you're at. They know if you're like right away, honestly. Most people can dial into where you're at. If you're feeling insecure or anxious or if you're overconfident, especially in dating, you can get that sense, right? So for me, I think it's two things. The biggest indicator and the approach I changed to my dating, which really helped me, was I like people to meet my friends and family like pretty quickly, and I'll tell you why. Because that gives me a sense if there's like a deeper connection and how they interact with my family. And my family is super important to me, especially my son. I'm not saying everyone's meeting my son. I'm pretty closed off about that. Not closed off, but I assess it as I go. But it's more like my dad. Like right now, my dad, he's 65. He lives with me for 2 months until he moves into his new house. And it's like, if you're gonna come over, like you're gonna meet my dad, and I love it. I laugh at it because my dad, I love like seeing how his reactions are, what he is, and he's super charismatic, down to earth. So, and I'm just the type of person that'd be like, I want to see how they interact, or like my best friends. I have a very close circle of best friends. Life's not getting any short, like longer; it's getting shorter. So these are the people I'm gonna be with for the rest of my life. At least I think so. So let's see how what's the vibe there, and yeah, I just think that that's a really cool way, and I think a lot of us are very we like silo date for like 1 year or 2 years, at least when I hear a lot of people, and then like they maybe meet the family a few times and they meet friends. Again, everyone's at their own journey, but I think maybe sometimes at the gate we get a much faster indicator if like there's a larger social connection here. Not saying you need to be friends with my friends, but like what if we're like let's go for dinner, like I don't know, just stuff like that. So that was actually the biggest indicator for me to see how comfortable someone is with friends or family. Like an example would be, I had a really good friend. We did a team triathlon together, and I never met her before. And she came and flew in and stayed with my family and my mom and I, and my cousins at a chalet. And just her energy of being like, I think we were like going to go somewhere. My cousin and I were like, "Hey, you coming with us?" She's like, "No, I'm staying here, going shopping with your mom." I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I was like, "See ya." Like it's like that's like the kind of stuff that I appreciate when I'm like, you can be independent, like hold your own, and there's no hand holding. So that's the stuff I look for now, and more than ever, I think it's for me anyway. That's a good indicator.
Oh, yeah, that's a great piece of advice. For sure, your trusted family and friends, because if your trusted family and friends, the piece of people closest to you, if the person you're dating, if that doesn't mesh well or they don't like that person,
Exactly.
I had to learn that over the years because when I was like a teen, I'd be really like rebellious and be like, my parents don't know. Like I would never have them
I'm the
pick
same.
someone for me, and you know.
Yeah.
But the key word here is like trusted friends and family. Okay, these
Hmm.
are people who really know you, and they can spot immediately
Hmm.
whether someone is good for you or not. And they're not looking at the other person so much; they're looking at you when you're the other person because they know
Man, that's
when you are the shining star, comfortable version of yourself. And if you're not, they can pick up on that. So that is what they see.
yeah,
And so I always think it's a good thing to trust. And I think what you're doing is smart, just off the bat. Why
yeah.
not
Like
meet your friends? Why not meet your family? It doesn't mean anything. I think some people
I,
get scared, like, I don't want to, it's like pressure.
yeah, but I know people do that, right? And I want to be like understanding to that too. And I'm more of a, even though I may be very extrovert on occasion, I'm also pretty introverted too. But I like this idea where it's like, yeah, let me meet your mom. Sure, let's go. Like, we need to go for like meet your parents, whatever. Like, I love it because there's actually nothing to lose. There's everything to gain from it because it's like cool, like I met your family. Now I have a better sense of what your social world's like what your life world. And you know what? It probably won't work out if you don't have a good relationship with them, to be honest, because that can lead to other challenges in the future, right? Like maybe you don't have a strong social world. Maybe you're not you don't have a strong social support system with friends, and like those are pretty key. And I'm not saying everyone is born into different circumstances, and I've gone through the motions of repairing my own family ties over the years, but it's just that now I look strongly upon both like what is their social world like and their support, but also my own and how do they interact with that. Which is why it comes back to me like, I have to plug this here, but like the Pitch Your Friend campaign for Heartstring
Yes,
and
let's talk about
this
this.
this for me, like it's a way to bring this humanness back into dating. And someone brought this up recently, and I think about it a lot, back to this trust we get from like our friends. So if you're like, hey Lee, I have a friend that, if I was single, hey, she'd be great for you. Why don't you guys go on a blind date? I would probably 99% of the time be like, cool, like sure, she's your friend, know her. There's already this automatic level of feeling of like some social trust, right? Right. You're vouching for that person, right? So for me, this idea of like pitching your friend, and getting kind of 15 seconds or less, like you to pitch your friend on video to someone, I think is a really human way to see like, yeah, people are like, oh, it's biased. I'm like, yeah, but it's also not biased. It's authentic. You know, in this person, it's going to be valid of what you say about them, and who knows what you're going to say. It could be funny, could be like I've had some pretty funny comments so far from people, which is great, pretty outlandish, but at the same time, for me, like having that in a dating app experience, I think is really it's a really interesting way to create not only trust through by me being on a dating app. It's very impersonal now, right? So it's very focused on the individual. But truthfully, again, back to this idea of like this larger social life world around us, inviting your friends, and you do that kind of sometimes if you add photos of your friends in your dating profile. But if you see videos, whether it's someone pitching you or videos of your friends and family, I think that's actually a really good, quick way to, without meeting them, to be like, ooh, will I vibe with them? Like just again, little glimpses.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, that's bringing back this human element into our social life where prior to dating apps and dating on the web, we would do that through friends and family. People would be like, I know this person, or like go on a date. So yeah, I'm just trying to bring that back into the dating experience, and the Pitch Your Friend campaign is part of that with the launch of a really cool feature. You can't post this podcast actually before the launch of this because I'm going to tell you it now. But it's
Okay.
basically, it's Pitch Your Friend, but it's in the app. So that's like it's our hook. It's our No dating app does this. Okay, so no dating app has a feature that allows you to um, send a link out to anyone else that's in the app. So if you're in the app, I'm in the app, and you're like, hey, Lee, you want to do a quick pitch for me on my dating profile? And it's a cool way to also pitch myself. That's an interesting, even though, yes, mostly men would be looking at your profile, but at the same time, like, there may be, who knows, like, maybe people are showing their friends. I don't know. But the point is that I can actually create content for you, and take some of the pressure off you also having to create content for yourself as well, which I think is a really cool piece because a lot of people feel a lot of pressure making content for their dating profile. And it's like, get a friend to pitch you. Plus, I get more insight into who you are now in your life world. So,
Oh, absolutely. That I love that because yeah, if you want to learn about who someone is, and I would do this when I was on the online dating apps that were just photos. If they had a photo with friends, I would judge them based or gauge them based on I'm like, oh, that guy looks like scum, kind of, and or if they all looked kind of
yeah,
like those scummy guys, I'd be like, that's a reflection of you, buddy.
yeah,
So
it
I do
is.
think, right? And then hearing the video, which I mean, this is long overdue, is having videos. I feel like it's a no-brainer for online dating that
Mhm,
you get more
mhm,
of a sense of energy when you see someone the way they move because it's really easy to be very charming and create a persona kind of like original Instagram, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
certain angles and people can take time to type what they want to type, but it's
Mhm,
like how do they talk? You can't
mhm,
hide awkwardness on
mhm,
video,
mhm, mhm.
right?
But that's the
So
best part. You got to put something out there to get something back. And like part of my assumptions are that there's a whole host of people swiping on people that they actually otherwise would connect with if they
yeah.
just saw them on video, because
Yes.
they just see some people suck at photos, some people suck at
Oh, for
putting prompts,
sure.
and we know already that like the caliber, like the level of which you have to have like to stay in tune with like the dating game. It's like read any of the latest like research. It's like one last week I did a post on, which was these like you need to have really original metaphors. So it's like, what if you suck at making comedic metaphors? Like some of the classic ones are like, help me with my swing. They're not working anymore because nobody's attracted to that. Like no one cares. But it's like you need to have super comedic ones and it's like maybe you're not that good at making up an original metaphor so someone reads your text prompt and then matches with you, or maybe you're not good at taking selfies because the research shows that you need to have your angle to the right so that it shows some of your jawline. And like, it's so absurd, like the gatedness towards like actually kind of meeting someone. And that's the piece for me where it's like asynchronous video, again, like TikTok, Instagram story style, 3 to 15 seconds, I can get a much better sense and I have a much better chance, I think, at meeting someone based on similar interests, based on, you
Yes.
know, versus swiping on a literally like old profile. So I don't know. I just
Oh,
think that
yeah.
this is the right way.
Oh, for sure. And if you're a high performer and you want efficiency, I feel like
Yes.
this is way more efficient. Like you're just more clear of what you're signing up for.
But like to that point though too, like being a high performer, and let's say you don't want to download a dating app. So like the next piece for me to this is we're launching a matchmaking service. And the matchmaking service, of course, you could guess it, is just video. So it's like, hey, we send you 3 to 5 videos of potential matches every month. All you got to do is say yes or no, and we set up the date for you. Period. It's like that's it for a small subscription fee. A lot of these matchmaking companies charge a lot. I'm not saying it's not valuable. What I'm saying is maybe we can make it a little bit more accessible to people that want more of a concierge service that is not based on either like having so many exhausting questions and just seeing a photo or some text about someone. You're not going to get anything. You get a very little low resolution view. But if you get a couple videos, a few times a month of potential dates, I think you're going to get a better sense of, and it's served up to you from a matchmaker that's literally triaging matches for you. I think that's cool. So again, choose a dating app with asynchronous video or jump into matchmaking with video. I just think it's the way forward in any case.
What are some other features of your dating app?
The second one for now for us that separates us from everyone else is there's only 3 conversations. So you need to be a little bit more intentional in who you're communicating with. Part of the problem we've discovered is that, and I'm sure as you know, and the clients you speak with, is that people are overwhelmed and it's exhausting to even get started. Especially again, if you're a top quality or high value woman, it's pretty common that you're going to have a lot of messages and notifications. I'm saying, yeah, if you're a high quality man or a high value man as well, of course you are. So I just think men aren't as bothered by it, but women are pretty bothered by it when you speak to them and they have look at any TikTok video. Like sometimes people do those videos where they show how many matches they have, and it's like, how do you even begin to have an even basic conversation with someone, or assess potential? And again, everyone's different; they have their own approach and their own style. I just think that reducing the noise to 3 conversations forces you to consider what am I here for and what am I looking for? And you can't actually match with anyone unless there's a mutual like. And you're not going to see anyone that likes you right out the gate too, which is I think cool because you're not getting distracted by like likes, 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 likes. Yeah, it's played off of our dopamine hit for the past decade and people get an ego boost from it, but it's like, has it served us very well? I don't think so. That's the second kind of defining feature for us is just making sure we reduce the noise for people, maybe a little bit slower dating, if you will. Maybe it'll be like by being slower in the experience, it'll be faster at finding a potential love match in some ways, like
More
so.
intentional, more quality. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, there's that. And then, as you know, just slowly building out our coaching and matchmaking ecosystem. So, kind of wrapping the dating experience in this ecosystem, which is just a way for us to provide a little bit more access to content, but also make it, again, more fun and engaging. And maybe we create a little niche community out of that. I don't know, but I do think having that awareness and having that on hand as the date, like personally, if when I was going through my 1.5 year of it'd be nice if I would have like, yeah, I could go on the internet and like search on YouTube, and I've done those things. It's just like I think it's kind of interesting in the dating experience. So I want to see what how daters feel about having content like, like you have content about high performing women in there, right? It's like or we have content from another, like a sexologist and yogi. It's like, that's kind of cool. Like, let's talk about what orgasms are like when you're dating, stuff like that. I just think it's interesting to see if that resonates with people. And I do want to build like an ecosystem of services for people in the dating experience, not just matching, right? So that's kind of this larger journey here.
Are you on your app to
Well,
date?
now I'm seeing someone, so, everyone always jokes and asks me that, and they're like, "Why didn't you just go on it?" And that would be the best vehicle to market it. I'm like, "Hey, the optics, guys, come on, it's kinda weird. I'm
It's
on there. I should look in the database and see if anyone, like, likes my my content, but no, I'm not. I'm trying to create the dating experience right now, so, you know,
got it. Yeah, I would imagine it would be like Tom from MySpace. You would be like Tom from MySpace if you were actually using your app.
that's a hilarious reference. I mean, you know what? Who knows? Maybe one day I'll be back on my app. I don't know, but I just
Yeah.
like it's you never know what how things work out. But no, at this time I'm not. Our new version 1.5 is coming out in I don't know a month or something. So I don't know when you're going to launch this podcast, but in any case, should be about a month. Hoping right before the new year. So that will include pitch your friend feature. It will have matchmaking and yeah, more coaching, some updates to the interface, and yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a nice start to the new to 2023.
I love what you're doing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about that and also sharing your own personal journey. I know I mean, you're cool about it, but it
Yeah,
is very
yeah.
vulnerable to just talk to the world into a microphone about, all the personal growth stuff.
I don't want anyone to ever feel the way that I felt sometimes, like being so isolated and felt like lonely or that there was no one else that wasn't going through that. I had to work through those things, but I think if I can like inspire anyone else or help anyone else, that's like the key part here. And everyone's going through their own journey, but you may you yeah, you're alone, but you're also not alone. That's why it's important to speak about those things, right?